Welcome everybody to an action-packed episode 4 of FFL Weekly, your one-stop shop for news, recaps, and matchups here in the greatest league on earth. Can you believe we're already a month into the season? Time sure flies by when all the days blend together and you have no friends. This week was chock full of surprises, upset victories, shocking individual performances, and a plethora of trades. Just to put things in perspective, Aaron Jones was traded and it wasn't the biggest move of the week. Oh no, that title is going to the 3-team deal that shook the league to its core. Led GM stacking chips, trying to get to the one chip that matters most. How about packaging off the injured young star Javonte Williams and landing a haul? A bigger haul than Bangers got for Breece Hall, Jalen Hurts, Stephon Diggs, and a 2024 first-round pick. Everyone and their mother, including the GOAT Luke Sawhook, thought he won that trade. If you're the Hogs, if you're Bangers and Mash, frankly, I've got one question for you. What on earth are you thinking? Okay, Hogs, we get it. Your young running backs are taking time to hit their stride, and you want to load up for the future, sure. Did you have to give up one of the best receivers in fantasy, and one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy, and a first-rounder to make it happen? The answer is sadly yes. As for the Bangers, are you insane? You're trying to repeat and you decide to not only downgrade from Jalen Hurts to Kyler Murray, but also to let Jalen Hurts and Stephon Diggs go to a contending team that was only missing a quarterback and a flex, all for one 2025 second-round pick? Was that really worth it? I want a full investigation into all 3 teams, including text messages, email logs, and credit card statements, because, ladies and gentlemen, I don't like to throw out this word often, but I smell collusion. Bangers and Mash clearly displaying signs of boredom amidst a 10-game winning streak. That streak is sure to come to an end soon after this boneheaded transaction. And as for LegGM, he's looking to rewrite his season, a frustrating 1-3 start, but something tells me with the lineup projected 150 week in and week out, those dubs will start coming in by the truckload. That is, unless he continues to get matched up against the motherfucker who drops 160 every week. For managers across the FFL, this may be their only hope. The integrity of the FFL lies in the hands of the schedule gods. What a time to be alive. And before we move on from this trade, I just want to make it clear I think this was an excellent move for the Hogs. Must I remind you that Derrick Henry himself started off his career as the RB46, followed by the RB36. And it wasn't until 2 years after that when he finally cracked the top 10. Well, Javonte Williams, as a 21-year-old rookie, splitting time with Melvin Gordon in an offense operated by Teddy Two Gloves, finished RB17. So put some respect on Javonte's name and put some respect on the Hogs. Our next trade, folks, by order of magnitude, Aaron Jones has been shipped to the High Rollers for a second and third this year, a first next year, and a second the year after in 2025. Now, ladies and gentlemen, call me crazy, but I think this is like a perfect trade. I don't understand the controversy one bit, honestly. A 27-year-old superstar running back landing a first, 2 seconds, and a third is just fine. For anyone saying the ragtag titties should have gotten more, you should have offered him more. I know Jay Bagel was shopping him around, and I promise you, he took the best offer given to him. So lay off of the guy, would you? As for the High Rollers, they had picks to spend. Still in possession of the most firsts over the next 3 years by quite some margin, so there was certainly room to make this deal, and for a contending team with issues at running back depth, Aaron Jones is just about the perfect asset that you could acquire. Our last trade of the week is the controversial Quick Accept. Kareem Hunt surprisingly getting shipped to Rest in Peace Pop Smoke through the Sleeper app, without so much as a peep in the FFL group chat. I don't know who the fuck you think you are, but don't let this happen again. And that's all I got to say about this, because it's time at long last to recap Week 4 of the FFL. We're going to try to get things going quickly. Started off, as always, with America's Game of the Week. Sound the alarms, people. The 10-game winning streak for Bangers and Mash culminates with a 200 bomb on the multiverse. From the first minute, it was a touchdown blitzkrieg. Jalen Hurts rushed for 1. CMC caught 1. Eckler caught 1 and rushed for another 2. Zach Ertz caught 1. And Mike Evans caught 2. The only players to not score a touchdown, in fact, aside from the defense and kicker, were Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill, but they did just fine, I'd say, combining for 24 catches, 282 yards, and 52.1 fantasy points. Even the defense got in on the action. No touchdown scored for the Eagles' defense, like I said, but 4 sacks, 4 fumble recoveries, and an interception amounts to an excellent output of 20 fantasy points. For the multiverse, Najee, Juju, and Gabe Davis all failed to hit double digits, and this was just a game where every single player had to hit their ceiling. 118 points from the multiverse in total, and they fall to 2-2. Up next, everybody, we're a month into the season, and the rejects are sitting pretty at 500. You counted them out, but they said, that's all right, we play better when doubted, pulling out a 9-point upset victory over those Frogs. Here to steal the show was Damian Pierce, the breakout game, a whopping 25.9 points for the rookie off 131 rushing yards and a touchdown. Plus, remember, we play PPR, so 6 catches that went nowhere for only 8 receiving yards, still worth more than another touchdown. Of course, Josh Allen came to play, no surprise there. He's your QB2 on the season, but make no mistake, this was a real team effort here. 5 different players scored between 11 and 14 points. 130 in total for the rejects. They conquered the Frogs, who started out 2-0 and have sadly dropped their last 2. To make matters worse, that sexy Taylor Swift duo both dealing with injuries. You've also got Antonio Gibson in line to compete with Brian Robinson for ownership of that Washington backfield. So some question marks for the Frogs popping up, but the biggest question mark of all, the elephant in the room, Kyle Pitts. He has scored 3 points on 3 separate occasions this season, and that is not okay. We were really expecting a sophomore surge, as is the case usually with tight ends, and this was last year's 2nd overall pick in the FFL, 4th overall pick in the NFL draft, and tight end 6 finisher. So far, he's just tight end 18 with 25 total points through 4 weeks. Once again, that is just not okay. So you've got the Frogs looking to bounce back, as well as the ragtag titties. Goodness gracious, we've done it. Ladies and gentlemen, there will not be a winless team in the FFL, at least for this season. Team Cardoso has put up their first dub. This is a victory for FFL parity. Everybody's happy about this except the 2 teams actually involved in the game. Ragtag Titties suffers a crushing 19-point loss right after their upset win over the High Rollers. This just goes to show there are no certainties in fantasy football. We're just throwing darts out here, folks. The return of Russell Wilson is finally upon us. Captain Cringe finally stopping making awkward Subway commercials long enough to study some film, and it showed here. 31.4 points for the supposed tank commander. Coach Sabates is not happy about this performance. He's telling Russ 2 touchdowns through the air and 1 on the ground is 3 too many for our team goals. At this rate, Brian Robinson is going to be the only B. Robinson on the Team Cardoso running back depth chart come next year. Jay Bagel lost Cordero Patterson to injury this game, then followed it up by trading away Kareem Hunt and Aaron Jones. So look for Lombardi Lenny and Jeff Wilson to man the helm for the Ragtag Titties. Oh boy, is that lineup capable of reaching 100 points? I'm not so sure, but I know who else isn't capable of reaching triple digits. It's King Nick and the Hogs. King Nick putting up 97 points and still beating the Hogs by 4. I'm getting sick just looking at these player performances. 7 different players mustered 6.1 points or less. Just an abysmal outing for both teams, but the standings don't care how you did it, as long as you did it. And King Nick is sitting here 3-1, with the Hogs falling to 1-3. After the game, the Hogs took a hard look at their squad and said, it's time to stop fucking around. Let's fortify this running back room. He makes a trade for Javonte Williams, sending team captains Kyler Murray and Stephon Diggs on their way out of Hogs HQ. It seems like the race to the bottom is just as competitive as the race to the top this season. Speaking of Stephon Diggs, he's coming in as mid-season rejuvenation of sorts for rest in peace Pop Smoke. Facing some brutal luck from the schedule makers here, putting up a decent 122 points and still losing by 57. The High Rollers drop 179 points to become the 2nd highest scorers of the week and the 3rd highest scorers of the season. TJ Hawkinson finally had his blow-up game, just 0.1 points away from a 40 bomb. 5 players in total hit 20 or more for the High Rollers. They are 3-1 on the year, with their sole loss also serving as the sole win for the Ragtag Titties. The addition of Aaron Jones after this game should not be overlooked. The High Rollers are now all in on title contention, and boy does it look like these playoffs are sure to be fireworks. Well, that was week 4 of the FFL. Looking forward now to week 5. We got some juicy matchups starting, always, of course, with America's Game of the Week. Can you believe there are only 3 teams with winning records, and we're so privileged to see 2 of them go head-to-head here in Week 5. It's the 3-1 High Rollers taking on 3-1 King Nick. This one is split as it gets. Vegas and the fans both barely just siding with the High Rollers here. 60% of the fans at home are picking the High Rollers, while Vegas has them as a -2 favorite. And folks, that might be the tightest Vegas line we've seen all year. Cortland Sutton here tonight, kicking things off for the High Rollers. Of course, America's Game is getting plenty of primetime action. Plenty of eyeballs on that Ravens and Bengals game Sunday night as well. Lamar and Andrews take on Joe Mixon, all 3 starting for King Nick. Your newest high roller, Aaron Jones, locking plenty of air miles this week. He's flying all the way to London for some Sunday morning wake and bake action. He gets the Giants at 9:30 a.m. If this one's close after Sunday, it's going to come down to the high rollers Devontae Adams on Monday night versus the Chiefs and King Nick's kicker, Daniel Carlson, who did manage to outscore Adams in week 2. So what a story it would be if he could do it again. What about the last remaining unbeaten Bangers and Mash, making some head-scratching moves this week? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, Lincoln, but he's in La La Land. He can't hear me. And here we are, not with Jalen Hurts, but instead it's Kyler Murray at the helm, taking on the 2-2 rejects. 70% of our fans at home going with the Bangers here. They're also 23-point Vegas favorites, expected by most to get the job done. In just a few minutes, it's the Rejects' Michael Pittman taking the field versus the Broncos on Thursday night. Sadly, our only primetime performance this week, although we should keep an eye on that 425 game. Former banger, Jalen Hurts, newest banger, Kyler Murray. Perhaps Lincoln should have waited until after this game to make that trade. If Kyler comes out flat against that Eagles defense, it's surely not going to go over well in that Bangers locker room. If the Rejects pull off the upset here, there would be no choice but to view them as a contender. They'd be ending a 10-game winning streak and moving above 500. Up next, it's 1-3 led GM taking his shiny new toys for a visit with the 2-2 Frogs. Don't let the records fool you. Both teams here are viable title contenders, but it's going to be a must-win matchup for both squads. For led GM, you never want to fall to 1-4, although if you're going off last year, that apparently is the blueprint for winning a championship. And for the Frogs, boy, it's going to be hard to pull this one out. Jonathan Taylor missing Thursday Night Football, plus DeAndre Swift, Kyle Pitts, and CeeDee Lamb all missing Thursday's practice with different ailments of their own. If all three can't play, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Frogs. 80% of the fans already at home predicting a Pop Smoke dub, and the Vegas line, our biggest of the week, led GM coming out the 27-point favorites. So the fans think the newly acquired stars will waste no time fitting into that lineup. Of course, with all the limelight, we've got plenty of stars in primetime slotting. Led GM kicking off on Thursday with the Broncos defense taking on the Colts. Then it's some British Barkley action on Sunday morning as Saquon takes on the Packers at 9:30 a.m. But the biggest showdown to pay attention to is definitely that Sunday night contest between the Ravens and the Bengals. You'll be seeing 5 starters in that game. Burrow, Dobbins, and T. Higgins for the Frogs, Jamar Chase and McPherson for rest in peace Pop Smoke. If the Frogs have a lead going into Monday night, it'll be all eyes on Josh Jacobs, taking on those Kansas City Chiefs. The 1-3 Hogs and the 1-3 Titties go head-to-head in the battle to get back on track. Sadly, we're stuck with a B team here, folks. It's Adam Archuleta and Greg Gumbel on mic, providing commentary for this matchup with our top dogs already booked for America's Game of the Week. Our only available primetime slot for this one was Sunday morning, so you'll see Aaron Rodgers and the Lizard King, Alan Lazard, at 9:30 a.m. The line here is close. The Hogs currently 4-point Vegas favorites, and 70% of fans agree. A story of note here, it's the return of Miles Sanders to the starting lineup for the Hogs. He's looking to repeat on that 29.6-point performance from last week when he takes on the Arizona Cardinals. Also, we haven't seen this guy in a while either, but it is spooky season, so feast your eyes on Scary Terry in the flex when he takes a start against those Tennessee Titans. Speaking of the Titans, Derrick Henry's gotten things going over the past 2 weeks. Over 20 points in each game after scoring just 8 in his first 2 games. So nobody's cheering harder for him than the multiverse as he takes on the no longer winless Team Cardoso. Both teams hoping the Vegas line pans out here. The multiverse coming out dominant 20-point favorites, but the fans see some life in Team Cardoso. A whole 40% of them believe they'll pull off the upset. In a few minutes, buckle up your Broncos. It's time to watch Russ cook on Thursday Night Football versus the Colts. For the multiverse, they're just hoping to leave Sunday within 50 points, because it's Patty, Kelsey, and Juju on Monday night taking on the Raiders. Well, folks, that just about does it for this episode of FFL Weekly. I know it wasn't as extravagant with segments and guests as last week, but we did have to use all our production budget on legal fees after getting sued from our last episode. So apologies for the bare bones experience this week, but it's all we can afford. That is, of course, until Luke Sawhook gets us on that big stage. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Now would be an excellent time to spark up. You've got Thursday Night Football starting in just a few minutes. So take care, everybody. Enjoy your football weekend, and I'll see you next week here on FFL Weekly.